Hey guys, Abner Miranda here. Today we're going to be working on our grip. There's been a big shift in the industry and in the recent couple of years that came to mind. Let me put it this way. When I went to SHOT Show in January, it was like a whole new demographic of people. It was startling. I talked to a friend of mine about it and he noticed it too. We've lost a lot of people in recent years. Several companies have gone belly up. People have merged, people have dropped off and gone off and done other things. But the one thing that I'm noticing now is, and especially at training classes, there is a new generation of shooters that has literally learned how to shoot from YouTube. Oh, that is such a loaded statement. And that's very dangerous. So I wanted to show you guys some of the stuff that I've picked up over the years from the almost 40 classes that I've been to. Basically, when I first started shooting years ago, this is how you shot. There are still a lot of people that shoot that way. This is bad news. And the reason for that is you have now turned yourself at an angle to the bad guy. And should one of his rounds come at you, it's now hitting you at an angle, which means it has a greater chance of hitting more organs and your spinal cord than if you were to face yourself at the bad guy. And luckily, this has become the more prevalent way to shoot these days. But there are still a lot of variations on this right here that are a problem. I want to help you guys try to erase the damage that you may have already gotten into your head of, bad technique, and try to help you guys move forward. Because many years ago when I first started shooting, I remember going to Riggs Gun Shop in Orlando, Florida, and Mr. Riggs came into the range where I was shooting. He kind of stopped and stared at me for a minute. And made me very self-conscious. So I put the Glock down. I said, "Sir," and he comes over and he literally goes, "Boop," and just sort of moved, my shoulders, kind of, pushed my back in a little bit, just to change my posture. And all of a sudden I started hitting better because he'd shown me the basics. No one had ever shown me the basics. I grew up in an anti-gun Democrat home. Mom and Dad, I love you, but you're anti-gun. And I grew up in that kind of an environment, so I entered firearms at the age of 21, not knowing what in the world I was doing, and I made a lot of mistakes. And back then, there was no YouTube, there was no Magpul Dynamics, there were no videos easily accessible out there, which have been good and have been bad for our industry. So anyways, before we get into this, today we're shooting Black Hills ammunition, 115 grain, full metal jacket, 9mm. Before we go any further, I wanted to show you guys that one of the things you can do is you can preload your ammunition into a hard drive case. These are readily accessible at Best Buy, Walmart, whatever, from Case Logic. And they're not very expensive at all, and you can take a paint marker and mark them. What I do is I preload about 150 rounds worth of what I'm working with for that day, and all you do is unzip it partially, dump a little bit out into your hand, lay it out where you're working, and zip it back up again. And it allows you to carry a fair amount of ammunition without all the boxes getting in the way, because once you get multiple boxes out here, you end up having to pick up boxes to figure out what's empty, and you're pitching them in your truck, and this type of thing right here, laying in the truck, in the bed of your truck. If luckily I have my own range, but for those of you that go to the range, if you forget this in the bed of your truck, you have just said to a bad guy who happens to come walking by and looks in, gun in vehicle. So keep that in mind. Anyways, all right, let's get to it. Come on. In 2008, I was a police officer, and I sent myself to Tactical Defense Institute in West Union, Ohio, and they absolutely blew my brain. I went there for a rifle class, and part of the rifle class is pistol because they have you doing transitions. And John Benner, the lead instructor, showed me basically a grip modification that totally changed how I did everything. Until then, I'd been doing either this, I can't remember, either this or some kind of modification of this, but I remember that my thumbs were both up. And essentially what we did was we went from this to forward thumb, support thumb goes here, and the shooting hand thumb lays on top. And this right here changed everything. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the pistol, watch my support hand. See how it remains pointed forward? This thumb shelves, in this case, on top of the light. I shoot an Inforce APL that I've stippled with a wood burning kit, a whole $8 from Harbor Freight. A wood burning kit will totally transform your APL. In fact, I did all the framework on this Glock, so you can either, if you don't have a light, you can stipple this area here and shelf against it, or shelf against your light. It doesn't matter if you're running an APL, Streamlight, it doesn't matter if you're running an Inforce product, Streamlight product, or Surefire product. All pistol lights have a bit of a shelf because they have to clamp onto the accessory rail of the pistol, and it gives you something to shelf against. So what you do is you take your support hand, push it forward. The thumb is in line with the radius. The radius and the ulna are the two bones of the arm. The thumb is in line with the radius. The pistol is pressed in. This hand is pulling slightly back. This hand is pushing slightly forward. And what you do is lay the thumb on top. And the other thing you want to practice is both eyes open. Right now, both of my eyes are open, and I've learned to just ignore the sight picture of the, I've got fiber optic sights on, and I've learned to ignore the left fiber optic sight that's floating out here in front of me. For those of you that are righties, you're going to have to learn to ignore the sight picture on the right side. Once you learn to do that, you can actually get very fast target acquisition and follow through because you're not trying to squint. I've heard people say, well, you can't really squint in a gunfight, and then you talk to people that were in gunfights, and guess what? They were squinting. So that baloney goes out the window. But the point is, if you can practice shooting with both eyes open, you can take one more step out of the equation, so why wouldn't you? So with this grip right here, I've now taken it one step further. I picked up from Frank Proctor at Way of the Gun that if you take this thumb right here, take it outboard, pull in, now it's actively pulling your support hand in and helping you control that pistol that much more. Some people like it, some people don't. The other thing that he shows you is, instead of this, which is the way the vast majority of us shoot, he basically has you stand up, bend your elbow slightly, and it gives you far more peripheral vision and also top vision too, even with a hat on. There really isn't much to this grip. A slight modification of what you're working with now can really pay dividends. Let's take a look at how this works. So once again, support hand gets pushed forward all the way. The lead hand pushes into it, support hand pulls slightly to the rear. And you'll notice the pistol barely recoiled, dropped back down on target. And both of those shots are pretty much in the same, yeah, I painted this earlier. 1, 2. I am roughly 2, 3, about 3 yards, you know, not particularly far, 9 feet or so from this target. It's a 6-inch target behind that polymer plate, but I'm able to keep both shots dead on and pretty much in the same spot. So let's take a look at that again. Once again, support hand is bent forward, shooting hand pushes into it, the support hand thumb pushes forward onto the light, pushes downward, the shooting thumb lays on top or pulls in. Let's see where those were. Oh, there's number 1 and there's number 2. So yeah, a little bit sloppier this time, but still acceptable because it is inside of the neck / head structure. So not bad at all. You'll notice there really isn't much to this grip. And that really is the case with a lot of the things in shooting that people try to make complicated. In reality, a great deal of what there is in the shooting world is actually very simple. Very simple modifications to what you're presently doing can yield a dramatic effect to your accuracy. The reason that this grip is so effective is it allows you to trap that pistol from both sides evenly, because if you're shooting like this, that pistol is now sliding out of your hand, and it's gonna want to recoil this way. But if you can trap this hand with this thumb and shelf forward on your light with this thumb, that pistol only has one way to go. When you saw it on the video, it's straight up, straight down, straight up, straight down. Now of course this is 9mm, it's not that hard to hang on to, but I've demonstrated this with 40 and 45 polymer frame and aluminum and steel frame. So in closing, I would say get accustomed to one pistol. Pick one pistol in your safe, get to know that gun, and the other thing is make sure you have enough gun for the fight. I know that tiny guns are in vogue right now, but please consider what I'm going to say to you. This is fact. I've seen this many times over. People get really tiny guns and they start working them at classes. And I don't mean square range classes where you're standing there and drilling paper for 3 days. I'm talking about classes where you're moving around, in and under, around vehicles, in and out of structures. The first and foremost, you're running out of ammo really fast. Secondly, the guys that have tiny guns run out of gun to hang on to. You know, the grip is, you know, that short, that kind of a thing. Your slide is that short. And what happens is guys literally don't have enough gun to hang on to. And I've heard on more than one occasion guys make a comment. In fact, I forget what the guy was shooting. I want to say it was the 380 or maybe it was that new Shorty 9mm from Glock. But anyways, he finished the drill and he said, "I'm starting to rethink this tiny gun." And I just kept my mouth shut, but I captured it on video and I thought, that's a learning moment. And I really wish there was a way to share that with people without, you know, piking that poor guy out. Because here this guy was, pistol, mags, support gear, $800, $900 into it. And he went to a class to discover the hard way, whoops, I don't have enough gun to hang on to. What I tell people is either take counsel from someone who's done a lot of this stuff or go to a class and learn on your own. But for goodness sakes, don't drink the Kool-Aid. Because a lot of the stuff that's in magazines is bought and paid for, okay? Those are articles that are just slathered with a lot of frosting to make you want to run out and buy that new tactical widget or tactical weapon, when in reality, that gun and that piece of gear might just be leaving you hanging. So anyways, these are some things to take into consideration, but getting back on task. Grip is one of those big things that I'm starting to notice has been so lost. Steve Fisher does a great job of teaching grip. But grip is being lost because a lot of instructors are kind of having this mentality of, well, I've done all the level 1 and I'm moving on to something else. And level 1 instruction is very important. I mean, handgun manipulation is kind of being shunned to the side because it's just not tactical, it's not cool, it's not high speed. But level 1 instruction is so necessary because I've got people in my own family. My brother purchased a Glock and doesn't know, you know, he's trying. I talked with him yesterday on the phone and he's trying to get instruction, but he doesn't have access to good instruction. And so that's one of the reasons that I'm doing these level 1 videos, because I want people to get some basic instruction on what they need to be doing. You know, in the academy in 2000, we were being taught to get that pistol out and fire from right here, several shots, and then push out and back up. A lot of that stuff is kind of being shunned and pushed to the side because people just don't think it's important, but it's very, very important. Level 1 instruction is bread and butter. Every time you see somebody do something really fast and really high speed and tactical, what you're not realizing is all that person is doing is the basics, level 1 basics, extremely well, very efficiently, because they figured out one thing that solves a lot of their problems and they stick with it. And for me, that's the grip modification that I've been showing you guys. It's this. This right here is, when this pistol came out, I was naturally on target. There's a tree downrange that I was pointing at. It's so second place for me to do this now that when a pistol comes out, it's automatically pretty much locked in where I need it to hit. So anyways, that's what I've got for you guys today. I hope you've learned something. I appreciate you guys watching as always. God bless you all. Get those guns out in practice. Have a good one.